We use the Gedalchis while Pukal Puikashaw around the Gakenya as chopped and chopping you. Just to put that there's others who can use the couple Pukal. I want to welcome everybody here, and I want to thank you for coming, because I know that you don't get here by accident. You have to make a decision to come, and it's an expensive exercise to come from Kerry or Galway or wherever else. So I appreciate your support for what the Land League is endeavouring to do. Just to not to politicise this, but I have as much of a political head as anybody else. And until the day comes when everybody in Dáil Éireann can have an opinion of their own, which some way represents that of their public, well then we have nothing other than a Mickey Mouse shower of doctrine. No TD in Dáil Éireann is entitled to have an opinion. They have to have an opinion poll first, and then they have to have the sanction of the whip. What a comedy. And if we accept that, I had 2 canvassers in my yard in the last week, and I can tell you, one of them was from Fianna Fáil, one of them was from Fine Gael, and I guarantee you they were sorry they came. A few of us set up the public banking forum last summer because I couldn't get a discussion anywhere about public banking, because most people said, oh, they're all banks, what the hell, they're just banks. And that's not really true. It's like oil that goes in the motor car. There's lots of oil. If you put the oil for the engine in the diesel tank, it won't work very well, or vice versa. You need to understand that there is a difference. And likewise, there's a difference in banking, and we might need to understand that practically all our banking in Ireland and England is provided by 2 or 3 in Ireland, and in England 5 or 6 banks. In Germany there are over 2,000 individual independent units of banking supplying their community. And nearly 70% of the banking system in Germany is owned by the public. And we need to realise that, and we need to understand that we can fix this problem. Hands up here, the people who pay tax. No, all right, no. No, just listen a second. No, wait. Just listen to me now for half a second. Just listen to me for half a second. If you pay 10,000 a year in tax, just take that as a figure. What you don't know is that you're paying about 12,000 a year in interest on everything you do from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go up to bed at night. And people need to understand that we're bleeding up to 40% of everything we spend on interest to the private corporate system. And we need to understand that. And where the Germans have figured it out is they stopped that. They stopped the bleed. And we need to stop that bleed. And it's a very simple exercise. We have the credit unions and we have the post office. And between them there's about 27 billion on their books. And we need to fight to make sure that they are used for our benefit and not for the corporate benefit, and which is the way it is at the moment. The corporates have full control over that. We need to understand that the present money system is one where, according to the Lisbon Treaty, Article 130, Ireland gave complete control over our central bank and our money system to the ECB. Now the central bank is run by private bankers, and the ECB is run by the central banks of the respective countries. That's a simple exercise. They rule the roost. John Weigel talks about JP Morgan. All you have to look around for is his brother in crime is Goldman Sachs. And they're all over the place. Now, we have no say as of today, but we do have say in the sense that we can change the banking system radically, and maybe in time, if we can get some traction on some issues, we may get to the point where we can either exit the euro or develop an alternative currency. But we need to do that, and I mean, the more than Dominic talked about tackling the oil issues, Shell to Sea brought out a brochure 18 months ago which put the oil discovery so far at 1.6 trillion. Now, the fact is that we can fix this. We need a national public savings bank service that services all of the people, not just the corporates. And I want to go back to the money issue again. 96% of all money is created as debt money through the banking institutions. That's a privilege that has been given to the private banks, and they have abused it. And how have they abused it? At the moment, any sort of a 3-bedroom house in Dublin, in most places, is costing in the region of 300,000. That requires in any couple, that requires 100,000 each almost of a salary to be able to fund that mortgage today. Now, if that's not a cod, I don't know what's a cod, because the average salary for the 30-year-olds is in the region of 35 to 40,000. So how they're supposed to live in that economy? And we're told that the problem is fixed because the prices of houses is rising. How does that come about? It comes about because the banks have control over the money, they have control over the economy as a result. Because 80% of the money that is lent ends up in property, and there's practically nothing for small business or enterprise or manufacturing or anything else in the economy. And we have to stop that. And we brought over a guy here, Dr. Thomas Keidel, a month ago, and he spoke to us in the Green Isle. And one of the things that came out of the discussion, I was pretty gobsmacked. Even though I sort of thought I knew something about the German system, I was pretty gobsmacked when he drummed it home to us that the backbone of the German economy is not the industry, but it's the banking system which allows the industry to survive and thrive. And we need to learn that lesson. And if we go down the road, or continue down the road of putting the pillar banks back in their shoes, well, then we deserve everything we get.
Yes.
I make no bones about it. The pillar banks, as they are called, need to be broken up into smithereens, and anyone who thinks that they're worth 860,000 a year for screwing us, I think they need a lesson in common sense. As to a model of public banking, there are about 30 different models around the country, around the world. The Japanese Post Bank being probably the biggest publicly owned bank in the world. Brazil, India, China, 97% of the banking in China is owned by the state. Well, I don't suppose you're too surprised at that, but that's the way it is. 64% in Germany. Now the thing is that we need to design a model that suits Ireland. And I believe, and we've been discussing this, as to what sort of model we need. And I think we have to take on board what we have in the country. We have a very strong credit union movement that needs to be secured. And we have a post office service which is under serious threat by the corporates. And no more than Tesco, who bought their planning permission in plenty of cases. They cut the price of petrol. When they shut down all the petrol stations, then they shoved up the petrol. What's new? It's the same old game. When Tesco were building their 27 units around Ireland, Mary Coughlin, former Taoiseach, boasted about the fact in Donegal in November 2000 or January 2009, I won't forget it, and there wasn't one clown even in Dáil Éireann fit to challenge what she said. For every 10 jobs that Tesco produce, they put 15 out of business, and they're small business people. We might think we're being efficient. I understand why people go to Tesco, why they have to go to it in some cases to try and make the few pounds stretch. But remember, the more we support the corporate, the more you screw your neighbour. Whether you like that or not, that's what it boils down to. All I'd like you to do today is to firstly appreciate the fact that you've come here to listen. Secondly, I would ask you to tap into the information that's on the Land League website. Now, the Public Banking Forum has a separate website, and there's a mountain of information there for people who want to catch up to speed. But likewise, the Land League website is developing, and we will post the information that we feel is relevant on the website. We couldn't possibly go through it all here today. We'd be here until Christmas. So we'd ask you to keep up with it. If you have a particular interest in any aspect of things, we would like to hear from you, and we would like you to get involved. We'd like your organisation to be involved, like to get with us, because this might be our last chance. Lots of times people have tried to bring the different groups together, and it hasn't worked to date. If we don't pull it together this time, I can only take my responsibility in that. But a lot of work has gone in so far into trying to devise a mechanism to bring the groups together. We don't want to take any group's integrity, but we want to channel the energies of every group together to make it happen, to change this country for the better.
I want to thank Jim for his contributions, and possibly just want to say that for the last 9 months, various meetings, Jim in fact was probably the person who kept the Land League alive on many an occasion when not a lot of people turned up for meetings, etc. So I want to really thank him for that. Where the Land League is going to go is that in proposing alternatives. It's very easy to get up and criticise government, and a lot of organisations do, but the Land League, with the expertise and the people that have attended meetings, we feel that we can come up with alternatives, and a public banking is certainly one of the ways forward. If one thinks that at the start of the state, the foundation of the state in the 1920s and 30s, the ACC, which was the Agricultural Credit Corporation, was established to provide funding for agriculture and farmers. And the Industrial Credit Corporation, which was the ICC, was set up to provide the funding for the sugar companies and Bord na Mór and all the various other entities. Sadly, both of those went away. The ICC ended up in Bank of Scotland, and ACC ended up in Rabobank, and both of them are now leaving the state, and leaving the sorry state a mess behind them. So there is a huge amount of thought needs to go into where our banking is going forward, and the current plan by this government is not working. There's another, Seamus May has a motion. Seamus there somewhere? Seamus. Seamus has a motion that he wants to put to the floor, and if he's there, yeah, do you want to come up, Seamus, and just because the mic won't reach down. I'm going to introduce Seamus May. He runs an organisation called the Small Business Alliance, and he's attended a number of our meetings, etc. So I'll put you on to Seamus here.
Thanks, Jared. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks to the top table for allowing me to bring this motion. Basically, our organisation, we've been maybe 3 decades involved in trying to tackle white-collar crime in Ireland. The Land League here is really a group that's starting from the bottom up. But we also need change from the top down. And most of what we're all talking about here is banks and problems with banks. And I'd like to bring a motion. It's to do with transparency, new politics, new culture, everything that our Taoiseach Enda Kenny promised us. And you'll probably all be aware that the Minister in charge of us all, Minister for Small Business, John Perry, has in the region of €5 million of debts with various banks, mainly AIB and Danske. And Mr. Perry was allowed to enter into secret arrangements with these banks and has now had some settlements. And as a minister in this government, and as a Minister for Small Business, he should not be allowed to keep his arrangements with the bank secret. None of the rest of us can. We're all up in court and we're all being sued. So the motion is a very short motion that I'd like to put to the meeting. That in accordance with the Taoiseach's commitment to a new politics, a new culture, to transparency and accountability, the Land League calls on the Taoiseach to publicly disclose full details of Minister for Small Business John Perry TD's negotiations and settlement with the banks over loans reported to be close to €5 million. Thank you very much.
Can we take a show of hands on that? Is that motion proposed and accepted? Unanimous decision. I mean, not only just do we have the situation where we have members of the government who have entered, John Perry is one and there's some others, we also have a situation where the Judiciary, a number of them, have outstanding loans, and I'm on the record of challenging one of the judges in the High Court on the matter, where he's jointly and severally from the Land Registry, or Registry of Deeds. You can see himself and his wife has huge outstanding loans with Bank of Ireland, and he told me in the courts that he didn't have, which means he must have got them written off also. And there's one of the Supreme Court judges who has quietly slipped off the Supreme Court and gone off to London. She's rumoured to have 30 million owed to banks. So we have people ruling in the courts and in various other circuit courts and district courts also around the country with similar problems. But and because we have no accountability in the judiciary, and the government has failed, and successive governments over the years, in bringing in any accountability, no judges are accountable. Just an example, Seamus May spoke there a minute ago, challenged Judge Cook, who has actually retired off the bench because he was a shareholder in CRH. On top of that, he acted as a barrister for CRH before he went on to the judiciary, and yet he thought nothing of hearing cases where he dismissed Seamus's cases and Good Concrete's cases, which now the Supreme Court has quietly ruled they have to be reheard, but nothing has been reported in the media about it. It's amazing, but you know, these are the issues that we're talking in general, and they're just a few to speak about. I have one last speaker that Tom Darcy wants to say a few words. If Tom wants to come up. Tom has fought a lonely battle with AIB. He only owes them 17 million. And he had the success of in the Supreme Court overturning the 17 million from day one. Last November, and the whole thing was dismissed because the bank got all its legal work all incorrect. And Tom, you know, was supported by Friends of Banking and a number of other people down the courts, and as a result he had a major victory. He's now sitting waiting for the banks to come at him again, but he's in a far stronger position than he was when they started 3 or 4 years ago to attack him. So I'm going to put you over to Tom because he's done a huge amount of research.
Firstly, I'd like to thank Jim from the Public Banking Forum and particularly the Land League for giving me this opportunity. The reason why I'm here is, yes, I'm affiliated to a political party. This is not about politics right now. Basically what I do is I give people information, and anybody that wants to get the information to basically challenge your bank. I've been in the High Court 37 times and the Supreme Court 7 times. I became one of the very few people who have won the Supreme Court twice as a lay litigant. And yes, the banks are coming back after me, but the reality is for them, they had to dismiss a case last week alone. So now they only have one case left against me, and that under the Superior Court Rule 21 will be dismissed on the 9th of May. So those that want to witness the second case of the AIB being dismissed. I did have some class of speech made out, but basically I just want to ask people here one simple question. 4 years ago, when I started representing myself, I raised issues of liquidity, security, securitization, legal and equitable rights, and nobody had a clue what I was talking about. I made contact with people across the world in relation to arguments that were being placed. And there is one simple question that I came up with, and yet no member of the Supreme Court, none of the 37 High Court judges were able to answer the question. And I'll ask every person here today that same question. If you were told the truth back when you entered into the mortgage contract or the indemniture contract, that the bank was insolvent, was operating illegally, was trading without a perfected banking license, had insufficient capital requirements, manipulated its financial status and share value, and they would sell your loan to a third party, would you have signed that contract? No. 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 Well, here's the question. The banks did all that. I produced to the world a document which is registered here. It's a C1 registered mortgage document that has been sitting in the Central Companies Registration Office for now 6 years. And it states, it's dated the 15th of February 2008. This one is the AIB, and every bank in Ireland on this day, they all their solicitors for the banks went in on this same day, and they all stated one thing. Paragraph F, we are insolvent. This is a legal document that no TD, no member of the media would report. This clearly shows that the banking industry of Ireland were operating illegally, trading illegally, funding illegally, and yet nobody questioned it. Why? That's obviously got to do with vested interests. I then initiated a mass criminal investigation against every financial institution in Ireland, dating back to 14th of February 2013, as confirmation from An Garda Síochána. I identified all the criminality that the banking institutions committed. To date, I haven't received one piece of correspondence. I contacted GSOC. GSOC hasn't replied back to me. So we have a banking institution that was operating illegally, selling loans, as you've heard earlier, from thin air, and yet nobody is questioning the legitimacy of the banking institution. You drive your car without a driving license, you'll be convicted. I raised that issue with Judge Ryan. I've been before every judge in Ireland, well, at least in Dublin, and they all know me by first name. Sadly, and this is where I'll go back to my notes, this nation's people did nothing wrong. You and I did nothing wrong. We broke no laws, committed no crimes, but yet every person on this island are paying for the criminal actions of corrupt bankers and culpable politicians. With the greatest respect to Matty. No infractions at all. I witnessed at first hand the consequence of these actions. When I stand waiting for the sheriff, mainly with Jerry, to evict an innocent family from the home, or looking into the eyes of a child who stands over her father's grave. I've stood over 37 suicide funerals, and I would have to tell you that it is the most harrowing feeling in the world. We are not aware, none of us here, how easily the mind and mental trauma can change in a second. These are not just crimes against the innocent, but they're crimes against the humanity of Ireland, of the Irish nation. For too long we have tolerated the hypocrisy of our so-called public representatives, who pass laws that desecrate our families, that adds to the heavy burden we already carry, more taxes, more cuts. Over 90 so-called public representatives, TDs in this area and every county in Ireland voted in favour of the eviction bill. That's the Land and Conveyancing Law Reform Bill of 2013, one to which I brought a constitutional challenge against, one you haven't heard about because the media won't report what I do. I challenged the Minister for Justice and the Attorney General in relation to retroactive law, which is unconstitutional. We have 90 so-called public representatives who voted in favour of evicting Irish families. Their oath of office is to uphold the Constitution. The family of Ireland is held above all laws. So how can a civil court issue a civil order that evicts and extradites a family from their home which is constitutionally protected? That has never been identified. Our Constitution was born from the blood of our patriots, which guarantee our families protection above all laws in this state. A Constitution that took brave men and women to sacrifice their lives so that you and I could be free from tyranny and persecution, from unjust taxes and eviction. We have allowed their sacrifice to be in vain. Our government has failed us. Our judiciary has failed us. Our banking institution has failed us. Our police force has failed us. For generations, we have held our hands together on bended knee. Today, I ask everyone here to open your hands and to unite with your fellow man next to you. For this is how we can create a better tomorrow for our future. Unite, determined and proud. No more to corruption, no more to deceit. We, this nation's people, have had enough. We elect them. We can eject them. That's called democracy. And that's what our patriots fought to give us. Let's honour their memory and stand together and change our country in the image they envisage for us. In a land where families do not live in fear, where children do not leave the shores of this island. A land where mothers and children are safe from eviction. How can this be achieved, you might ask? And of course, I've listened to every political speech, and I've listened to a lot of political parties advocating solutions. Most of them don't make sense. There's simple things that you might not know, and it's quite simple. You take the average family being evicted. It takes 65,000 euros to evict a family from their home, and a further 15,000 euros to pay sheriff fees and security fees and auctioneers fees. 80,000 euros, and then the bank sells the property on the open market. That mightn't sound much until you see what I've seen. My properties were taken and my family home was given away. Possession was given by a judge that Jerry and myself know quite well. And he didn't consider the consequence. He violated most of the laws known to man in this state. And I fought for 4 years. And I proved that the banks had lied. They manipulated documentation. And I've heard the old chestnut about you're a developer, you caused it. I broke no laws. I committed no crimes. None of you did either. So if this was Pelican House and I was walking in getting more blood than you or you or you, you'd be all quite sympathetic towards me right now because I got more than anybody and now I've got hepatitis, God bless them. The reality is we need not to argue or point the finger with each other. We need to focus on the criminality that's perpetrated on this country. And it's being done by the banking institutions who are influencing. Now, Jerry touched on this earlier, but just to give you a clear indication of what we're talking about. Let's take an average loan 6 years ago, it's at 300,000 euros. Open market value today of 150,000. The banks spend 80,000 euros of your money evicting that family. The bank is left with 70,000. Now your taxpayers' money has to house that family over the next 20 years, which will cost you on average of 228,000 euros, which will amount to the figure of the people today of over 2,000 families, 200,000 exposed to eviction. It's going to cost you 40 billion. These figures haven't been bandied about. Yet our health service are dealing with people who are committing suicide and the effect on children. This is not being bandied about. All these issues you're hearing about, securitization, people don't know what you're talking about. Most people haven't got a clue. I didn't have a clue up to 4 years ago. Yet, on the Anglo tapes, and everybody was appalled by them, they were laughing and sneering. Yet, not one pundit, not one economist, not one television reporter, and again with respect to Marty, not one politician, asked a question that was in those tapes. Both said to Fitzgerald, when we get to 7 billion, we're going to have to securitize it. Why were they securitizing 7 billion euros worth of cash? How much did they get? The central bank had to endorse that. So they were culpable. The minister had to endorse it. He was culpable. Then you go to the fact that they were securitizing all our loans. The first act of KPMG when Anglo-Irish was liquidated. The first act. And let's remember firstly how that came about. 7 o'clock in the evening, every TD in Ireland was called in. And at 3 o'clock the following morning, they voted on a 58-page document, which is about this thick. I read it and it took me 4.5 hours, and I'm quite slow. The TDs were handed that document 50 minutes before they voted. Thank God they weren't voting for nuclear strikes on Ireland. So, the following morning there was a new bill passed that prevented, because remember, I can't take an interlocutory injunction against anyone if the courts are closed. And that's why Michael Noonan done that. So nobody could go into the courts and take out an injunction to prevent the government introducing a law that protects the banking institution that are based on criminality, who are nothing more than gangsters, who are unlicensed, unsolved. First action of KPMG was to pay a company called Armour Residential Securities. You haven't read about this, but everything I say, I take documentation. I post up, just go Tom Darcy eviction on Facebook. Everything I've said right now is verified with documentation to prove what I'm saying. The first action of KPMG was not to evaluate the cost, the debt, to evaluate the criminality which they're required to by law. The first thing they done was to write a check for 2.61 billion. Your taxpayers' money to Armour Residential, a company that had securitized the Irish Nationwide Building Society's loan books, which didn't appear in their financial records. By the way, you all know there was 90 billion originally 4 years ago we identified as loans that we owed. Not one of those loans appeared when they were securitized in the financial records of any bank in Ireland. That's fraud. You done that in your company, you'll be charged tomorrow.
Find them in the central bank records.
Find them there if
And
you're
then you
looking.
can't prosecute them. They're immune from prosecution.
So they create laws to protect the guilty, and us, the taxpayer or the innocent, we're convicted and we're persecuted. I have 1 minute. I'll sum this up quite quickly. 2.61 billion spent for a company owned by one shareholder, one person. Who is that person? And how come the first action of a liquidator spent that type of money to a company that was already liquidated? You don't do that by company law. And nobody asked the question. What I've done for 4 years is I've asked questions that the central bank don't want to answer, and Garda Síochána don't want to answer, our political system don't want to answer, and I will never stop asking questions.
We have Brian Patterson is here, or sorry, Brian Dolan is here regarding the water issue. We're going to give him 5 minutes.
Years ago, when I drank water, it came from a spring. That's just the way it was. Then it came from a group water scheme. I knew where the water came from. I actually even knew the people who laid the pipes. Today, the assembled value of those community and rural and municipal water groups is somewhere around 11 billion and is about to be handed over to one company. And the interesting part of that is that even up to very recently, if you wanted to have any input or any control over what was actually put into your water, you could lobby your local county council and they could in effect alter, change or decide what was going into your water. That's not going to be the case any longer. And who exactly is going to decide what's going into your water? We have Alzheimer's, we have aluminium using as a clumping agent in water, and when we drink that, we never think that that could actually be in there. We have, I'm just going to pick on maybe one or two things. There are probably somewhere in the region of about over 100 different contaminants that are in water, and over 50% of them are actually not identified. But one of the things that is most interesting is that Ireland is one of only 4 states in the EU that fluoridate the water. And the EU Commission of Health has stated that people do not need fluoride for normal growth and development. The European Court of Justice has defined fluoridation as a medication and has refused to sanction its implementation. And who exactly is listening? The Irish expert body on fluorides in health was established in April 2004, and they have broad representation in dentistry, biochemistry, public health medicine. And their work is stated on their, you can look it up on the website. The work of the expert body is to identify and implement the necessary measures to ensure that this vital element of public health policy is delivered in line with the forum's recommendation. It's not to decide whether or not it's any good for you, it's to decide how to implement it, as it says so clearly. And it says, first question, what is fluoride? Natural mineral and used by the body to strengthen teeth and bones. The Journal of American Medical Association says that fluorides are general protoplasmic poisons, change the permeability of the cell membrane. Is water fluoridation mass medication? That's number 19, and that's again from the Irish expert body. No, simply the adjustment of a naturally occurring element found in water, and that's in direct contradiction to the EU Commission of Health Court of Justice to find fluoride as a medication. So the information that has been disseminated is not always specifically accurate, and it requires definitely some investigation on your part. The only thing that I would kind of move on to say fairly quickly is that fluoride is a cumulative poison, and 98% of the fluoride you ingest in water is absorbed into your blood. about 50% is passed away, and you hold on to 50% in your teeth and in your bones. But really what's one of the most interesting things is who is in charge of your future health. And Irish Water, what exactly is it worth? We have 11 billion in assets coming under one control, and we have no cap on annual charges. And if you were to look at the Independent, I think on Sunday it said that it's going to start at 240 euros, but let's see how our costs work out, because there is no cap, and it's going to be determined by what it costs to provide. Interestingly, if you were to look in England in some of the Irish water, the water companies, there are probably about 7 or 8 that are listed, and their profits are in millions, hundreds of millions. And the only thing that I would ask you is this. If a country has an asset that is conservatively priced at 11 billion, and actually that's been written down, so but anyway, it's conservatively priced at 11 billion, and its revenues, its main asset, which are its compliant payers, which are you, do you think they'll sell it?
The Troika said they have to.
Monsanto is probably going to be one of the first at the table to buy. But the only thing is this. The greatest future asset of Irish Water is the compliant payer. Do you have a contract with Irish Water?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I'm now going to sum up very quickly so we can get everybody out of here. Basically, the first thing, we have a bucket at the door if anybody can make a donation to cover the cost of the room and other costs. And I also want to say that the website is going to have membership subscriptions, and at the moment it looks like we're going to have people a $5 to register, and the whole idea is to register so we will have everybody's name and phone numbers for contacting for evictions and everything else that we're doing. But we also need, so the whole idea is $5 for membership for individuals and and 20 quid for family membership. And we will also accept donations. We have a number of people who have offered money to help to fund different things, and we will accept donations also. I'm going to just sum up on a number of things which were mentioned there. Banking law. We have no banking law in Ireland. We have no banking law in Ireland. And when I speak about no banking law, we've seen the trials going on at the moment where they were under company law. And for most people, it goes over their heads. Very simply, we have the Road Traffic Act, which says there's double yellow lines, and if you park on double yellow lines, you get a fine and a ticket, and you can get penalty points. There is no banking law to say that a banker has done anything wrong, and I'll explain it very simply. We contacted the central bank regarding the theft of customers' money from bank accounts by staff in certain banks. And we had looked up their website and examined it everywhere, and we couldn't find it. So we rang the central bank, and they told us, oh yeah, it has to be in there. And 2 days later, we were phoned back to say, sorry, it is not in our regulations. So we then realised that there is no banking law. So if a bank staff steals money out of a customer's account, effectively, the bank is not obliged to report that to the guards or anything else, because there's no law to say if they steal your money, they must do X, or Y. What would happen is the guards would have to charge you on the Larceny Act or something else, but there is no banking law. So fundamentally, no banker in this country is going to go to jail because they did nothing wrong, because there's no banking law. And that's what most people need to realise. All of these show trials, which is what's gone on with this Shawnee Fitzpatrick and everything else, have been show trials to basically try and placate the people, oh, we're doing something. But they have not told us that there is no banking law. And fundamentally, what you should be asking the politicians on the doorsteps is, when they potential candidates, will you support the introduction of banking law where they will be sent to jail if they take your money or steal or overcharge you? I want to just finish on one other issue, and I'll sum it up as the airplane syndrome. If you have an aviation authority, and we've all seen the plane gone missing out in Malaysia and whatever else, right? If a plane crashes in the sea, you have a regulatory authority, the aviation authority, they go to investigate. They investigate the engine manufacturers, they investigate the aircraft manufacturers, they investigate everything surrounding it. They don't blame the passengers. If you take, we were all sailing on the good airplane Euro that was sent from Europe, from Germany and France decided they wanted to introduce a central currency. We were all flying high on it. It crashed. Who's being blamed? All the passengers, the customers, the regulatory authorities that walked away with their big pensions. The government has left them off the hook. So, you know, that just shows you a regulatory authority should be regulating as the aviation authority should be, and we have seen a complete lack of it in this country to do with the regulation.
Good evening, Jim Connolly is my name. And first I want to apologise to the meeting for being late. I've come from Loophead in southwest Clare. I have been at 3 or 4 of the Land League meetings, and I congratulate Jim Miller and James Devaney and the work they put into it. And there's a fabulous turnout here today. At the other meetings that I attended, I told exactly what I was trying to do. I agree with everything that's said here by everybody. And I want to change our country into a country that's managed by the people. And I fundamentally believe, and I will go to the grave believing this, that the only cure for Ireland is to change the politicians that are there with new politicians. And they have to be independent people, ordinary people of Ireland. And to that end, I've set up an organisation called Independents Together, who are non-party politicians. Quite a number of those candidates, they're around the country now, came from the Land League, who I first met them in the Land League. And even though they said they're totally non-political, the only answer is political. There is no other answer. You can be frustrated, you can shout, you can protest, you can do what you bloody well like, but until you change the political scene in Ireland, power will never be got to the people. And remember this, the people who are paying themselves hundreds of thousands, be they politicians or be they senior civil servants who run our country, they will continue to do that forever. Remember that. They're going to do it until they're ousted out. So I'm saying to you, and I'm appealing to you, get either yourself, become directly involved and running as a candidate, or support independence only and vote for nobody else. I'm not running as a candidate. I have experience in setting up voluntary organisations, and I'm bringing that to the fore for my country because I love my country. It costs me money everywhere I go, and it's coming from my pocket. And my good wife comes with me very often to share the journey. So I'm appealing to you, to yourselves. You're all Irish people, or you're living in Ireland. We are the people who can exercise control with our vote. Remember, it only takes 51%. It's a lot, but it's only 51%. I see Margaret Hanrahan here alongside me, who's going to run. I want to thank everybody who's coming here and who's doing it, but I would appeal to you, will you get it into your head There is no other solution except a political one. And the only main people that can represent ordinary people are ordinary people. That's my message.
I just want to say, like, in relation to, we had a politician here, and some of you mightn't have been appreciated. We have a situation where we have got to get access to the Dáil. We have a number of other TDs and senators who will talk to me and other people, but they don't want to be named to be associated with the Land League or the people. Matty has put his head over the parapet. He goes down to Wexford, which is not his constituency. He goes up to County Meath. He goes to Kildare to the protest. So we've got, while he is a politician, he has put his head over the parapet. And I'd like to thank him for being here today. I'm now formally going to bring the meeting to a close, and as I said, the way we will be communicating is through Reality Ireland, which is the TV on YouTube, where you can get the clips of all the different protests we've done, plus email and texting, because otherwise the media, we were very lucky yesterday, the Sunday Independent, and I want to thank them for covering the article, which created a lot of interest in people, but we are having grave difficulties in getting the media around the issues that have been going on for the last 12 months. But I want to bring the meeting to a close. Thank you all.